Okay, Shannon, let's see what we have going on here. I was reading your text earlier, your challenge to understand hot shoe problems here. You're going to be looking at the balance and timing. I'm glad that you have learned that the softbox and just bouncing the flash doesn't actually soften a lot of the light that is coming out of it. It gives you highlights. It still gives you this raw, powerful, different highlights that you sometimes just don't find attractive in your images. So I see that you're using softbox to soften the harsh light. I actually have a LumaQuest on top of mine, which is just a diffuser to bounce on top of the flash. But what I did, I put a piece of white paper towel over top of it with a rubber band, and that softens it even more. So I get that harshness taken out of there. Some people like to have that harshness, and they will put like crumpled up aluminum foil as a reflector on there, or they'll put soft aluminum foil, which means it hasn't been crumbled, right out of the sheets coming out of the flash, rather than if it's crumpled, it diffuses. If it's not crumpled, it's direct flash and get a very boom, bright, hot spot. So at least you're learning about the distance subject. Sorry about the dog in the background. It says work on getting the background to right exposure before adding flash for film. So what we actually have here is the distance from your subject to power. That is called the guide number, as I had explained on the other critique. Learning the guide number is one of the most important aspects of flash photography. Look up the late great Dean Collins. He had to be the master of artificial light, and the way he measured and calculated his flash setups were incredible. He had to be the most in-depth flash theorist that I've ever seen. His work was impeccable. Late great Dean Collins. So another thing here, it says you need to work on getting the background at the right exposure before adding flash and fill. That's true. You want to do that. You want to get your exposures all set and then just have a touch of flash, which is called fill flash. That works well. But sometimes the background needs to be lit more accurately with the flash. You just don't want to have that fall off. So learning how to control this and learning what that guide number is going to be the biggest piece of information that you can actually gather from the flash assignments. That is what you really want to look at, is the guide number. That's very important. I used to have a exercise for my students at my other college when I actually had the classroom, that they had to get a black background and light it normally, but make it look white in the final image. And the same thing with the reverse, a white background that had to be black in the final image. And that was all done by lighting and exposure. There was nothing else done. It was a very difficult assignment. It was for a studio class. Okay, so let's go. Here you said you had a little yellow hue coming off the walls and ceiling. Sometimes you want that. It adds a little warmer tone. That's why I said sometimes people on the outside, if they were shooting a wedding and it's cloudy or whatever, put a yellow gel, amber gel on there to warm it up, make it look like it's sunrise or sunset. So let's take a look at your images here. I'm going to go over to this one. Take a look through. I already went through the ones that I really liked. Again, you crop this, it's a lot tighter. Some of these images, some could be a lot tighter. Again, we don't need all that. Something like this, there's your image. And you have the juxtaposition of the hands. I'd probably bring it down even lower. Now you have a complete juxtaposition of hands from here to here, and a nice diagonal tying in the middle. Okay, stuff like that is what you want to look at for your composition. So we're going to come down here to your final images that you handed in. Problem is, she's still very hot in here. You need to get that burn tool. That's the one with the hand with the opening, and that means that you're letting more light into this area to make it the same exposure as this area. Okay, you need to darken that entire area in here with the control. I would probably also crop a little more on this side. We don't need all that. My image would probably just go right in here, similar to that, and get rid of everything else. We don't really need all the other stuff in there. It's still pretty tight. If you want, you can actually crop in here and just add a little more like this. Right about there. Now you don't have to worry about so much being the area that you need to darken, just this area right here to match that. So that'd be a good crop for that image right there with that. And we'll go to the next one. And again, not too bad. I like this one. The exposure is very nice. You have just enough little highlights in here. You can see it right here. That's the highlights from the flash. The only thing is, I would probably crop even tighter. We don't need that whole big hand on the bottom. And again, we go to that juxtaposition of, it's hard to do it when I don't have a cropping tool, of the one hand to the other. We get a nice diagonal on this, and that's the way it would look, right about there. Because my eye, instead of seeing this whole big hand, my eye concentrates on what the subject matter is, this here, making that rose. Okay, we know her hand is controlling it. There's no reason to have all this down there. So crop tighter with your images and work on that flash and try to understand a little more with the guide number. Look up the late, great Dean Collins, and you may want to look up Clarence Sinclair Bull, who was one of the greatest Hollywood portrait photographers ever, just to get an idea of how he handled light. And without flash, it was just continuous light. Okay, so take a look at those.